Oh, it's those filming people again. Hello, it is Braggy. I was hiding in a bush. Now today I have a very, very great story from Norway. Now today I have a wonderful story from Sweden. And today's story is called The Building of Lund Church, and has the theme of a legends theme, which means it is a legendary tale with some origin to landscape or a building. And so many, many years ago, in the land of Scandinavia, when they were pagans, arrived a single Christian monk. He was an English monk, and we do not know his name. And he was a very brave man, for he was one of the first Christian monks to step foot on this land. For he had a mission from the great God to build a church. But not just any church, a magnificent cathedral. And so, after talking to people, there were friendly people amongst the pagans to the Christians, some of them, and so they could raise some coin. Some of them converted, of course, at this time. And all the Christians wanted the church. Of course, the pagans that remained pagan, they did not want a building like this built. But anyway, it happened. And so one day the priest, he was out, he was looking for some land, and he found it in a place called Lund. It was a magnificent bit of land. And then he put word out that he was looking for builders, and some builders came forth, but none of them were good enough. None of them had the skills, had the crafts to build a big church out of stone and wood. And so word got about, as you do. People gossip. Even in those days people gossiped. And even the animals gossiped and talked, and the birds and the carrion. And one day there was a giant. His name was Finn, and he was a mighty giant, a very big giant. Some say he was 45 to 60 feet in height, 30 metres. Could you imagine the size of a giant like that? I would run. I would not want to meet a giant like that. I'm sure you wouldn't. And he was out in the woods, in the mountains, and he heard the birds talking. But it's well known that giants have magical skills, and they can listen to the birds and hear what they say. And the birds were chattering, tweeting away, saying, "Oh, there's a priest down at Lund and he wants to build a church." Who'd have thought it, eh? And so he thought, "Oh, here's a bit of opportunity here for me to make some coin." Even giants needed coin. And so he went up in the high mountains to where his wife was and his baby giant, and he says, "I have a job to do. I must go into the valley. There's a man that wants a church built, and I will build it for him. But I'll build it at a cost." And so, the giant walked, he strided down, lolloping down the valley. He was very eager to get this job done. This giant, he loved building. It was one of his most favourite things to do. And let's face it, the walls of Asgard were built by a giant, and if they can build walls, they can sure build a cathedral. And so, he came to the valley, and he came to the place called Lund, and he saw the priest. He was sitting on a log. He was, stroking his chin, pondering about who to get to build this church. And he saw the giant coming. First of all, he was very scared, but then he thought, he was curious. Priests are very curious people. So are padres, but they're French. And, the giant came up to him and said, "Are you the priest that is looking for a builder?" And the priest stood up and said, "Yes, I am." "I will build your church," said the giant, "but for the cost of the moon and the stars and the sun." Whoa. The priest, he said, "I cannot give you the stars, the moon and the sun. We do not own them." Oh, the giant was not very happy at this. "I want the moon, I want the sun, and I want the stars." but if you cannot give them to me, I will take the price in your eyes and your soul. Well, the priest was very scared about this because he did not want to lose his soul to the giant and nor his eyes. And so, he said, all right then, we will strike a bargain. And the giant said, but I will give you a bit of relief. If you, on the last day, before I place the last stone in, can guess my name, I will build the church for free. And you can keep your soul, and you can keep your eyes. Let's face it, your eyes are very important, just like what's inside. And so the priest agreed. And the giant, he went away for quite a few weeks. The priest, he was wondering what was happening, is he going to come and build this church? But unknowing to him, the giant was hewing stone out of a big quarry. Massive pillars, massive blocks. But of course he couldn't just move them down the valley by himself. Oh no. They was way too heavy. Some of these stone blocks were tons and tons in weight. You need a handful of giants to move them by hand. But what this giant had was a giant cart with a giant ox. And this ox, he was 40 feet high. One of the biggest ox you've ever seen. Horns, wider than a wood, a league wide. Can you imagine horns that wide on an ox's head? I can. And so for days and days and days, he hewed the stones out until he had a massive pile. The giant already knew in his mind what he was going to build. And he had all the tools to do it. He had spades and levels and all manner of tools you would need to build a church. String, that's vastly important to build a church. For it has to be straight, or else it will fall down. And nobody wants to build a church and have it fall down on the day it's finished. And so, after some time, the giant had enough stone. And he started to move it in his cart with his ox until all the stones were around near the place where he was going to build a church. And the first thing he did after he moved the stones was he dug trenches for foundations, because every building needs firm foundations. Never a true word said. So he dug these trenches and he started to place the stone. Now he was using a dry stone technique. Magical in those days, just as magical today. And slowly he started to build the walls. He went to the sea, he got a load of sand, he made glass. This giant was so clever, was Finn. Of course, unknowing to the priest, he did not know his name. And that was a very important part of this story. And so weeks and months passed whilst the giant Finn, this giant of a giant, with a big nose and big ears and spots on his face and big teeth. He could eat a man in one go, or he could eat 10 goats for his dinner, and that would not fill him. And so he got to the stage when he was putting the glass in and the pillars were going up, and he was about to prepare to build the roof. He went to the forest nearby and he chopped down the most magnificent oak trees you've ever seen, the tallest, straightest oaks. Oaks that bend over for the beams. In those days, they coppiced the wood to build such structures. Very clever people. How they planned ahead. And so he got enough timbers. He built the roof. And he found these nice flat stones to place on top. Now, it was the last day of the build coming up. And the priest was very nervous and scared, because he did not know the giant's name. We do. And so, he decided he was going to take a walk in the mountains of Helgar, up in Norway, or Sweden, wherever it is. And so he decided to take a walk in the mountains, for this could be his last day on earth. The giant, if he did not guess his name, would get his eyes and his soul, and he would be no more. And to the priest, he did not want his soul to go. He wanted to go to heaven in the long run. All Christians do. I want to go to Valhalla and feast with the gods and drink mead. That is my thing and your thing, and many people's want to go to Valhalla. A wonderful place, I'm sure. And so when he was out, this priest in the countryside, contemplating his last day on earth, because he did not know the giant's name, he had no way of guessing it. You know, yeah, he had one guess. You know, he couldn't stay there all day guessing the giant's name. No, that was not going to happen. It was one try and one try only. And so, when he was wandering in the woods, when he was walking about, in the distance he heard a noise. He couldn't quite make out what it was at first. You know, what is that noise? It is very strange, he says. But yeah, and I kind of know what it is. But it was too far away to kind of understand what that noise is. So he started to climb up the cliffs, up the pathways, until he saw in the distance a big cave entrance. Well, he was a bit nervous about caves, because trolls live in caves and other creatures. But his curiosity beat him that day, and he walked up, getting closer to the cave. And in the cave he could hear a voice and a baby crying, for it was the home of the giant. And inside was the giant's wife and the baby, and the giant's wife was talking to the baby. "Oh, don't worry, baby, don't worry, your father Finn will be back soon when he's built the church." At this point the priest knew the name of the giant. He was so happy, his smile beamed from side to face, and he was enlightened with energy. And he raced down, and he got to the place of Lund, where the priest saw and looked up at the giant. He had one stone left, the keystone, the most important stone of any build, and he shouted up, "Finn, Finn, I know your name. Place the last stone in." And at this point, the giant got angry. He placed the last stone in, but he was so angry he tried to tear down the building, but he built it too strong, the church. He could not tear down the pillars. He could not tear down the walls. And in the end, he agreed, "I have built this church for free, for you have known my name." And we have come to the end of this story. And today in London you'll see that cathedral. In fact, I would love to go there one day with my co-host and have a look at this wonderful building and have a few beers in Lund. So from Braggy, it is time to say goodbye. Was hail, and I thank you for watching. Give us a like and subscribe. Fucking alarm. That'll do for the day.